Common Dreams laid out some infuriating facts about the disappearance of our middle class in America. Let me run through some of these, and then we can get angry together. They say, number one, each year since the recession, America's richest 1% have made more than the cost of all U.S. social programs. Let that soak in. Think about it. The richest 1% have made more every year since the recession than the cost of all of our social programs. So, SNAP, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Oh, goodness. And then we get arguments from the Republicans that we just can't afford it. We can't afford to have a social safety net which is incredibly meager and less than the social safety net in every other modern industrial nation. We just can't afford it. And isn't it funny how they never question cost when it comes to blowing shit up? Whenever it's war, nobody ever says anything about the cost. Nobody says, hey, 57% of our discretionary spending goes to the military. Maybe we should cut back on that. Never. Never. When was the last time you heard a Republican mention cost in this fight against ISIS? Never. Never. But when it's social programs, now we need to, penny pinch, and we can't let that happen. They never care about costs when it's giving money to Wall Street, $80 billion for the big banks every year. They never care about it when it's welfare to ExxonMobil or Walmart. But when it's social programs, well, now we need to worry about it. And nobody knew, I didn't know, that the richest 1% during the recession every year were making more than all of our social programs combined. Stunning fact. The second thing, almost none of the new 1% wealth led to innovation and jobs. So this is really important because that's the whole Republican economic philosophy. The whole philosophy is Reaganomics. Trickle-down economics. If you deregulate and give the rich a lot of money, that wealth will trickle down to the people. It turns out that's not true. And their argument is, well, what the rich will do is they'll take the money and they'll create businesses and create jobs and everybody's better off. Well, empirically, we know that in the real world, when you give the rich money, what happens? They put their money in low-risk investments or in their bank accounts. They don't create jobs. They sit on the money. Again, facts are stubborn things. If people cared to look at them and learn them and understand them, we wouldn't have these insane right-wing economic policies in place that even continue under Democratic administrations. The third fact, just 47 wealthy Americans own more than half of the U.S. population. 47 people have more than 50% of people in America, 150 million, or even a little over that. Woo! Now, I'll say it again. You guys have heard me talk about this before. There's no problem with some level of income inequality. We all understand that the CEO or the business owner is going to make more than the janitor who works part-time. Nobody's saying, hey, give that guy the exact same amount. We want total communism. Nobody's arguing that. But the question is, to what extent should we have income inequality? And back in like the 1980s or before then, there was an intellectual argument that could be made for a CEO to average worker pay ratio that was like 20-1. CEO makes 20 times more than the average worker. Still a huge difference, but okay, there's an argument to be made for that. 42-1, now there's a little bit less of an argument. It's getting kind of creepy because nobody's really working 42 times harder than anybody else, but whatever, we'll tolerate it. I mean, now we're at the point where it's about 400-1, and now we learn facts like this. 47 people have more than half the country. That's just not smart. You're setting your economy up for failure when you do something like that. Okay, and the fourth one that we'll do here, we'll leave it at this. The upper middle class of America owns a smaller percentage of wealth than the corresponding groups in all major nations except Russia and Indonesia. So Russia's an oligarchy. So what that fact basically tells you is we are an oligarchy. Or again, the political science terms I always throw out there, we're a kleptocracy, we're a plutocracy. It's government of, by, and for the rich, government of, by, and for the ruling elite. They have rigged the system in their favor. So now we have a middle class, an upper middle class that's even suffering. Even they're like, wow, we're not as upper middle classy as the upper middle class in Australia and Canada and places in Europe. So it's ugly, man. It's getting ugly out there. This war on the middle class is alive and well. So the final thing I'll say, how do we fight back against this? How do we do it? There's a few things. I mean, number one, we should help the poor. So you raise the minimum wage, you make it a living wage, and you end that debate right off the bat. So we're somewhat moral people again. What we're doing right now is totally immoral, totally unethical. Also, what we should do is bring back unionization. Unionization. When unions were strong in America, the middle class was strong. Period. That's what we need. We need more unionization. Also, pull out of all these silly free trade deals. They're not free trade deals. They're just outsourcing. You take good middle-class American jobs with benefits and you ship them overseas. And you have some poor kid do it in Bangladesh for 37 cents on the dollar. So let's stop that. Let's give Americans those jobs again. So those are three main things that you do. And then also, you bring back a progressive tax system. You make the rich pay their fair share. This is another common sense thing that you could do. And finally, you get the money out of the political system and you make it so that the politicians actually represent the people and they don't represent the rich, which is what they're doing right now. And then you'll see all these terrible facts about the war on the middle class slowly start to go away, and we'll start to move in the direction of a better society.